Hello, everybody. It is Rocco, your boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this kind of an honestly, it's probably going to be an AoS Masters class here because we need to have a talk. We've been doing this series that will continue about if getting into the mind of players who play certain armies, what they're worried about, what their strengths and weaknesses are. But sometimes we can get bogged down into the weeds here trying to figure out what is the meta, what is the next big army. Oh, there's so many books, there's so many things coming out. Also, I do apologize for my lack of green screen today. It just didn't want to work with me, so here we are. I'd rather give you a video. Honestly, I'm looking good right now, though. I'm coming in HD here. Uh, Listen, the important thing is back to you. Ignore my handsomeness. Back to you, dear viewer. Um, Sometimes we just outthink ourselves, and that can happen in list building. Like a new general's handbook comes out, and it's like, oh, we're gonna buff foot heroes that are gonna be so hard to kill, and give them all these cool rules and all these things. And for me, when I come to a meta, I think of three things, right? One, how can I embrace it? Two, how can I kill it? Like specifically to hard counter it. If I know there's a really popular build, right? Either I do the build, I find a way to kill the build, I just ignore it and do my own thing. That'd be number three. And when it comes to Age of Sigmar, metas shift overnight. Each tournament that you go to, if you're a tournament player, will have their own meta based on who showed up with what army. You can't control that. You can't. You know, you might run into five Slaves to Darkness players at a 16-person tournament. Or you might run into none at a huge 200-person tournament. You'll never know. Unless you're friends with everybody and you already know, because it's like, oh, we're all going to Steve's house, all eight of us, to do our tournament. I know Jimmy plays this, Susan plays that. You just don't know. So while you're running around trying to figure out how to min max your army to beat orcs if they bring X, Y, and Z units, or 280 zombies, which is a problem, I will admit, you're losing focus on how to win games. In your list building, you need cheap throwaway units that are chaff. You need multiple sources of damage, so if one unit that does damage goes away, you have backups. If you do the Rocco's rules of charging three units at the same time so you get more activations than your opponent, you need more stuff that does damage. You need units that can stand on an objective and take the punishment. Call them anvils, call them tanks, whatever you feel comfortable with your vocabulary if you're coming from video games or other wargaming. Take your pick. And the name of the game is scoring points. You need to generally hold one, hold two, hold more primary objectives. That's really what the meta should be. And then battle tactics, which, again, we've been allowing book tactics. All right? It's just the way of life. We have to. The General's Handbook doesn't always, as we've seen with Mega Gargants this past season, they don't always give us five doable ones. They might give us eight to try, but not all of them are going to be easily accomplished. And while you're getting bogged down with this micromanagement of how do I get my army to score these extra 2 points, Gargant players have they're having like a positive win percentage before battle tactics because they've run away with scoring so regularly on the other conditions that with just a little bit of practice on their secondaries, the four that they can do, they do them in the right order depending on the game and who they're playing. They're figuring it out. So how can a Gargant player that has maybe 4 or 5 war scrolls in their whole army figure out what the rest of us haven't? And it's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Uh, you know, if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. Let's start there. And for me, because I learned it from my time in the kitchen, I always assumed it was the the other person calling me stupid, saying I needed to keep it simple. But you're much smarter than me out there. All right, let's start there. I've had to take years to learn what y'all have been learning through watching my videos in an afternoon. You're doing great. And then what all the other YouTubers are doing and watching, you're absorbing and going through. So I think that, listen, if you're going to go and be like, yeah, cool, I know this General's Handbook is about this certain type of troop. If you can embrace it with your army, that's great. If it destroys how you personally play the army, though, and have, played it well, don't do that then. If you're still winning games, like let's say with my Deepkin, right? I can go out and say, hey, I love running my sharks and all the harpoons and stuff. I have 1 foot hero. I've got some tech to kill other foot heroes to try to deny objectives, secondary objectives, whatever that people were banking on. But I'm not really in a position to try to play that game against them. I can't get bogged down in trying to get a bunch of Galatian champions in my army, which is the keyword for all the foot heroes in this General's Handbook, to score those extra battle tactics and do all these cool things. I can't compete with that. So, I could try to counter it, and I've tried, and I've had some success throwing in my Eidolon of the Storm, who specifically hunts heroes that are 8 wounds or less. Great for killing GCs. But, at that same note, it kind of changed my playstyle and what I wanted to do with the army, because it's 300 some odd points. Whereas before, I was using my sharks as mobile screens and gun platforms. So it changed how I wanted to play the game, and it wasn't necessarily as much fun for me. But I can put in just more units that are just straight up good. And then that leads us to our third thing here. Because I am now playing an army that can hunt down heroes without specifically teching into it, because I'm just going to kill anything anyway. Right? I'm still just a good army that can still do good things. It might not be 100%, oh, if they bring hordes, I've got a horde killer. Right? That's probably a better example here. Like, if the meta shifts to hordes, you're like, yeah, man, I've got all this technology all for this. But if you were still winning anyway without trying to get into that certain matchup, why wouldn't you just keep that list? It's not countering the meta. It's not being the meta of the horde, but if it's still good and you can still play it well, that's how you end up creating your own meta. And I think that's been lost in all of this. I know this is a bit more of a heart-to-heart, player-to-player here, but what are we doing? If you're just going off worried about, oh, I need to make sure I have X, Y, and Z in case I run into X, Y, and Z, and you're just so hyper-focused on that instead of being like, well, it's just a good army. Sometimes just being a good army, having good units in general is nice. And if you hyper-specialize your army lists and it changes your playstyle so much, so not only are you unfamiliar, but if you don't run into the rock that your paper beats, and instead you run into a pair of scissors, you're just gonna lose. So in conclusion, for thinking about the meta, there's 3 things you can do that I do when I analyze like a new shift, in whether it's the General's Handbook or a new army book comes out, where a new battle tome, and it's like, wow, this thing's really good. Is I look at, okay, can I play that same game as them? Can I hard counter them and specifically tailor myself to beat them? Or 3, do I even care? And sometimes you do care, but a lot of the times, if you're playing your own game and you're confident in that, you really don't need to. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, watching the video. A like, subscribe if you've been liking what we've been doing here. Leave a comment on if you're liking the series so far. You want more videos like this again. And be nice to each other and roll some dice, play some games, have some fun. And as I like to say at the end of all of our videos, bye.